Before the president took aim at James Comey, the fired FBI director took a swipe at the president. He says President Trump's promotion of unproven conspiracy theories is putting the agency and the country at risk. Comey tweeted this: "Facts matter. The FBI's use of confidential human sources, the actual term, is tightly regulated and essential to protecting the country. Attacks on the FBI and lying about its work will do lasting damage to our country. How will Republicans explain this to their grandchildren?" That's the quote from James Comey. Let's bring in former federal prosecutor Seth Waxman is joining us, CNN political analyst Julie Hirschfeld Davis, and our chief political analyst Gloria Borger. First of all, Gloria, what's your reaction to Comey's tweet? Because the president has really been going after him, among others.
Well, we know they're not friends. The president fired him. Comey now is firing back and saying this is outrageous, ridiculous. It's an assault on the way the executive and the judicial branch should interact with each other. And, you know, Donald Trump is very good at weaving conspiracy theories. Those of us who covered the campaign know that he did it very well, starting with Barack Obama, the birther theory. Remember that Ted Cruz's father was involved in the Kennedy assassination, which came from a tabloid report. So what the president is doing here now is very transparent. I mean, he is weaving a conspiracy theory so that you can investigate the investigators, so that if he decides not to testify or a report comes out and says, you know, this is really terrible, he can say, well, you know what? I didn't testify because these people are not credible. And if a report comes out which hurts him, he can also say, you know what? These people are out to get me. They're part of the deep state.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. You know, Julie, an analysis by CNN's Z. Byron Wolf says, and I'm quoting Byron, the president has taken a kernel of truth and contorted it into an all-out conspiracy theory of entrenched bureaucrats out to get him. First of all, what's that kernel of truth that he's building this entire conspiracy theory on?
Well, the kernel of truth is that there was an FBI informant, we now know, who was talking to associates of the Trump campaign. And the reason why is because the FBI, in the course of a counterintelligence investigation, had found that these campaign aides had some contacts with the Russians. And what the informant had been sent in to do, as far as we understand it right now, is to suss out what those were, what that was about, and what actually was going on, what the Russians were up to. He has taken that now and sort of conflated it with what he had already been basically saying was a politically motivated effort to tarnish him and tarnish Republicans, but particularly him. And I think the important point here is, I mean, Gloria's right, this is the sort of thing that he did during the campaign, but when you're the president, it has actual impact. And I think that's what Comey's tweet was referring to. When you say this about the FBI, when you say this about an ongoing federal investigation, it has consequences and it has implications. And the president doesn't really seem as focused on that as he does on protecting himself and his own reputation. You heard him say there, this was about, you know, doing a service to the country, but clearly this is a self-interested action that he's taken in consultation, by the way, with his private attorney to basically try to undercut the investigation that's going on.
The top Democrat, Seth, on the House Intelligence Committee, he said that what the president is doing, the president's spy theory, in Adam Schiff's words, is making a major threat to the rule of law in the United States.
Sure, all these counter narratives are designed to undermine the integrity of our law enforcement institutions. But I also think this kind of goes to the broader strategy that Mr. Trump and his team may be employing. I think that they have convinced themselves, maybe rightly so, that a sitting president will never be indicted, and therefore they're looking to impeachment proceedings. If articles of impeachment are issued up by the House, there'll be a trial in the Senate, and there needs to be 2/3 of the Senate to remove the president. That means the president needs 34 Republican senators to stand by him and vote in his favor no matter what the evidence is. We see him polling at 30 to 40% right now. If those numbers translate into those 34 Republican senators, that's the end game for him. And if he wins that, I don't know that he necessarily cares about the impact on the institution of the presidency or how this affects law enforcement long term. He wants to win.
If the president really wants to know what's going on, what happened, he's the president of the United States. He can call in the head of the CIA, the head of the FBI, the Department of Justice, top officials. He can bring them all in and say, tell me exactly what happened. I don't want to be embarrassed by suggesting conspiracy theories. I want to know.
Right. There is nothing stopping him. And by the way, we don't know what he's done, actually. There is nothing stopping him from doing exactly what you say and getting to the bottom of it. But what is stopping him is that he's already established a narrative that he doesn't want to get rid of because it's working for him. It's working for him among Republicans. You know, Bob Mueller has been discredited now among his Republican base. We see that in the polling. You're absolutely right. These are the Republicans he's going to need in case of impeachment. So while his lawyers are kind of going along doing their work, Rudy Giuliani is his kind of partner in crime here and is throwing out all these things about spies and informants and misinterpreting what James Clapper said on The View, purposefully to kind of rally the base. And I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to use it in the campaign.
You know, it's interesting, Julie, because the president keeps talking about this deep state, Spygate, all of these conspiracy theories. Mike Pompeo, the new Secretary of State, the former CIA director, he was a member of Congress for a while. He was on the Intelligence Committee. He was asked about all these deep state rumors. Listen to this.
Do you believe there is a criminal deep state at the State Department?
I haven't seen the comments from the president. I don't believe there's a deep state at the State Department.
That's your experience also when you interact with colleagues at the FBI and Department of Justice as well?
Yes. There are always exceptions to every rule. I've never led an organization that didn't have bad actors. I don't think any government organization is exempt from having malfeasance as well.
But in general, you're confident that the members of the various agencies are honoring their oaths to the United States Constitution?
Yeah, in general, yes, sir.
How's the president going to react to what Mike Pompeo just said?
Well, I mean, I think Pompeo worded it very carefully, and probably by design, because the president does not like to be contradicted by his advisors in public or in private, for that matter. We also heard the Homeland Security Secretary doing a little tap dancing yesterday about another issue related to this, about, you know, the evidence that the intelligence community, the assessment the intelligence community has arrived at that Russia did intervene in the elections to help Trump, to try to help Trump. And she said, well, I'm not aware of that. And then she had a very carefully parsed answer, because nobody wants to say in public that they agree with these theories, because they, you know, they have the information that clearly that's not the case. But they also don't want to differ too much with the president because he gets very angry about that. I think probably Pompeo's answer met his bar, but you can see that there's a lot of careful work being done to not seem to be undercutting the president.
Yeah, this is what he tweeted earlier today, the president of the United States, about a deep state. Look how things have turned around on the criminal deep state. They go after phony collusion with Russia, a made-up scam, and end up getting caught in a major spy scandal, the likes of which this country may never have seen before. What goes around comes around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's consistent with the narrative that we've been hearing for weeks, if not months. I think the gloves will come off even more in the weeks and months to come. The closer this gets to a report being issued by Bob Mueller's team, you're only going to hear the rhetoric, you know, become greater and more inflammatory. I think that's why Rudy Giuliani was brought onto the team, not to be a criminal defense lawyer, but to be a spokesperson, speaking to that base, speaking to those 34 Republican senators that they're ultimately going to need to stand by the president.
Very quickly, Gloria, the latest on whether the president will answer questions from you and our team have been doing some excellent reporting on this.
Well, what my colleagues, Evan Perez, Dana Bash, and I have learned is that the president's legal team is really trying to narrow the scope of any potential interview with the president to Russia and what happened pre-presidency with Russia. And what they're saying is pre-presidency is fine. There are no issues there. There's no constitutional issues there. There's no privilege issues there. But they are saying to Mueller, and our sources are also telling us very unlikely Mueller will accept this, but they're saying to Mueller, if you want to deal with the issue of obstruction, we would like to do it in written answers. And so they have proposed this. Again, nobody expects Mueller to accept this, but it's part of a narrative also that says we're trying. We're not just going to dismiss testifying, and Trump can then go out and say, if it all falls apart or this goes to the Supreme Court, or they can say, look, you know, we were dealing in good faith, and we made these proposals, and Bob Mueller didn't think it was good enough, and we believe we have the Constitution on our side here in fighting this over presidential testimony. So again, it's part of making their case.
I'm not holding my breath waiting for that Q&A to develop. All right, guys, thanks very, very much.